So today we have Martin Cox and myself, Patrick Grant. Martin's the Senior Support and Technical Manager here, and he'll be running the webinar itself. We've had a huge amount of interest in today's webinar, and it's fantastic to see so many new faces as well as our existing customers. So you've joined us for our lighting webinar, like I said, and we'll focus mainly on IBL and IES lighting and just how to get the best out of these features. The webinar itself will run for about 30 minutes. In that time, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let us know via the text chat box in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. Like I said, we've had a huge amount of interest, so if we are unable to answer your questions, please don't hesitate to send them over to the support team at support@artvps.com, and we'll get those sorted as soon as we can for you. Now that's enough for me, and over to Martin.
Okay, thanks Patrick, and I'd also like to welcome everyone coming to the webinar. It is good to see a few people that have come back from previous webinars, and again, exactly what Patrick said, welcome to some of our new customers or people that are just finding Shaderlight. So we're going to look at IBL and IES lighting in Shaderlight. Shaderlight gives you a number of options to allow you to light your scene. With a full understanding of as many techniques as possible, you'll have the flexibility to get the results you require. It's very much a styling idea. You know what you want from your render. So we're going to give you the tools and hopefully teach you different techniques that we can use as we go through. Spotlights and point lights are often used in lighting, and this is usually down to the reason that there isn't a full understanding of what some of the other features can do. So this webinar really is to cover some of the techniques and some of the power behind IBL and IES. Okay, so IBL. IBL stands for image-based lighting. Now this technique is puts your model inside a 360-degree image. Now the image has a lot of special properties, and this enables you to light your scene, and it also provides these real-world reflections that give your scene sort of ultimately a lot of realism. And we're going to look at what makes the IBL special, because a lot of questions we get on support, people use JPEG as a custom environment, and why they don't get the results that they require. And we're actually going to look technically at what the files actually do. We're also going to look at IES lighting. Now IES, as it says on the screen there, it stands for Illuminating Engineering Society. Now, the explanation that's there, it's more complicated than really, to be honest, you need to know. What you need to know with IES files is it's pretty much a real-world lighting information stored in a file. And Shaderlight can read this file, and then it can produce the results as this would look in real life. But we're going to have a look as we go through, and hopefully you'll get a sort of a full understanding of where you can get these files from, and also how they work inside Shaderlight and how they can benefit you. So as always, we're not going to go through sort of too many PowerPoint slides. We're going to get straight into the demo. So what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to show you is looking at one of the IBLs. So if I just open SketchUp here, and I'm just going to open a simple scene. And this is just a material ball that we've quickly modeled, and this is to show the reflections and lighting that we can get from Shaderlight. So I'm just going to set this up, and if I start rendering this, we get our Shaderlight screen there. So we've got our material ball, and we're just rendering using the SketchUp Sunlight at the moment. So if I make a change to this in our render settings here. Now we're using the SketchUp Sunlight, and I can change this to one of our IBL presets here, and I can choose Business Park Daytime or Golf Course Evening, and we can actually see that the light changes, the colour of the light, the feel of the scene, and this is the environment we're actually putting it in. So what I can do, I'm just going to make a change to the material, and using the Shaderlight Material Editor, I can select the current material, and I'm just going to set that to shiny, and we're going to give that sort of a highly polished finish there. And I don't want it quite to be a mirror finish. So we can now see the environment that we're actually in here. So we're getting that reflections from our IBL. So if I make changes here, so instead of golf course evening, if I set that to business park daytime, we get the reflections. So we can see the grass there, the office buildings in the back here. And I can also rotate this round, and if we look at the sunlight there on the floor, we're getting the shadows in a different position. And there's the sun, and it's the sun from this image that's actually casting this shadow. So again, if I rotate that around to the other side, we're getting that soft shadow, and that's moving around there. So what I'm going to do, let's have a look at one of those on the actual file. So I've got this, this Business Park HDR, and this is taken using a special camera. And we can see that we've got our 360-degree image here. And this is in some special software that allows us to look around at this image. Now this is not as the image would look inside Shaderlight at the moment, because this software flattens the image out so we can actually have a look around it. So it's a 360-degree image that's been captured there. But the big difference between the HDR and the IBL to something like a JPEG is the range of lighting that it actually captures. And if we look at this color value down the bottom here, if I hover over the grass here, the power of the grass there is 0.5. So this is sort of the brightness available in here. And as I head to the sky, we're getting sort of 3.8. But as I start heading towards where the sun is, we start getting numbers jumping up. Now, I want to be able to see where the sun is a little bit in more detail here. And again, one of the other things of HDRs is it's set at multiple exposures. So I can turn down the exposure level here so I can see where the sun is, and I can turn that down. And you can see I'm not turning down the brightness, I am actually turning down the exposure. So as I hover over the sun here, all of a sudden the color value has jumped up to just over sort of 1100 there. So this really is where the lighting information is coming from. So between the sky, which is at 4, and the sun, which is at over 1000, this is the lighting information that's being sent to Shaderlight. Now comparing this to a JPEG, if you think of when you enter manual color numbers in a JPEG, you've got 255 values. So the difference between light and dark can only be a maximum of 255. And if you looked between blue and white, it's only going to be sort of 20 or 30 points difference. So if you're using a JPEG as your environment, you're not going to get much contrast, and it will generally wash out your scene. But we can look at different techniques that we can use as we go through. So coming back to my scene here, so it is the sun that is actually lighting this environment. So as I mentioned, so it's really controlling that, and this is the power of that the image-based lighting. Now if I go into the shadow settings here, we can actually control the brightness of the reflections here. If I use the dark slider, now you can start seeing some subtle changes, but what's happening is our auto exposure is then taking over. Now this is a really useful tip, because we do get a lot of people saying that when they're making lights a lot brighter, their scene doesn't look any different. And the reason for this is the auto exposure setting. The exposure setting is set to make a scene look like a daytime scene. It works the same as your digital camera. If you take a scene with your digital camera, the chip on there is set to make your image look at a particular level of lighting. Now if I turn off auto exposure, and now I make changes to the dark setting here, I'm just going to increase this a little bit here, and now we can see that we're increasing the brightness and the intensity of the reflections of that HDR. So we can control that just using the shadow settings. Now the light slider doesn't make any difference, we're just using the dark slider in here for the differences on here. And we've got, we can start seeing the reflections of that 360-degree image. There's the office building there. And combining this with a backplate or a background image, you can then get that realistic lighting effect. You can get the background to match the exact lighting. So that's ultimately where you're going to be getting some of your results from, some of your best results, particularly for external lighting. Now, if I just look at another scene that I have here, and this is just an office building that I've got from 3D Warehouse, but I've made some changes to it. So I've just added a little more detail around it. If I render this, we're using the HDR, but I've also put the background on here, and these background images are available from our website, and they're in the resources section. You know, but if you want to know where they are, please just send an email to support@artbps.com and we can let you know where they are and how to get them. But these background images, they are designed to match the HDRs. So this photo was taken at exactly the same time as the HDR was taken, so that matches perfectly. And again, if we rotate that round, if we look in the window, the trees have moved round and the shadows have moved round as well. So you can really fine-tune that position to match your background photo. Now, there's other image-based lighting options in here as well. So we're just using a preset at the moment, and we've got 4 different presets in here. But something new that's in Shaderlight 1.3 is we're actually working with a company called Moof, and we've incorporated some more image-based lighting environments in here as well. Okay, we've been asked a quick question here about was I using the SketchUp shadow settings. Now, the SketchUp shadow settings, you will only see that those being used if you're using SketchUp Sunlight. So if I turn up SketchUp Sunlight here, now I'm using the SketchUp shadow settings, and you know, we can turn that on or off if we want to. So just turn the shadows off. Looks a little bit flat there, but it will do without the shadows. But if you're using image-based lighting, there are no options to turn the shadows off. The you know, the lighting in there contains too much information. We're casting shadows from a lot of the lighting in the sky. Okay, now another feature that we have in here as well is the physical sky. Now, the physical sky, the best way to think of the physical sky is to is basically to think of it as image-based lighting. So if I turn on the physical sky here, and we get the reflections there of the sky, and I'm just going to set my background so that I can see my lighting environment. Now, it's a little too bright at the moment, so I can turn down my background brightness here. Okay, and if I now make changes in the SketchUp shadow settings here, so just bringing up the shadows. I think let's put that behind something. Oh, there it is. It's behind Shaderlight. I've set Shaderlight to always on top, so if anything does go behind it, it doesn't take over there. But what we can do in here is if I now change the time of day, the lighting actually changes in our scene as well. So if I just move my image round so we can see a little more of the sky, we generate a realistic looking sky for every possible setting. So if I choose early in the morning or late in the evening, then we're generating those different times there. So we can start seeing the times, the color of the sky actually changing. So if I choose sort of very early in the morning, we're getting that sort of sunrise feel to it, and we're casting the shadows, and it'll be softer, longer shadows from there as well. So that's just really looking at that the physical sky. Now, it's not only external images that benefit from using the image-based lighting. So if I choose another scene here, and this is just an interior scene, and I've put a skylight portal over the window, and you know, skylight portals are something that we have done in previous webinars before. Well worth having a look at our YouTube channel. If you just search for Shaderlight, you will see our YouTube channel there. So it's well worth having a look at those, and you'll see some of the techniques that we've used, and I've used a skylight portal on the window here. So if I render this, and what we're doing is we're just rendering this, and we can see outside the window here is just one of our lighting presets. So that's golf course evening there. So if I rotate that round a little bit, we'll see the tree there. Now we've panned round, so the tree has actually moved round. The sunlight is now coming in at a different angle through the window. Now what's also worth knowing is it's not just the light that's coming in, it's also color information that's coming in from the scene as well. So if I change from golf course evening to business park daytime, which is what we were looking at earlier, now I can just spin my my IBL around all the way around the outside there, and I want the sun coming into the room a little bit more, so you know, we can just fine tune there. It's also a different color, it's a different lighting, it brings the color and the feel from the IBL into the room as well. So if we were to use our physical sky, now this is what I was saying before, you know, if making changes to the times of day there, so we've got sort of our blue bright time of day at the moment. So if I turn that down into the morning, you know, we get a different sort of effect from the light here. Now I've got a light behind me, and I'm just getting sort of a light scattering there, and that's just coming from the lighting setting that I'm using. You know, we're not quite set up with this, but you know, they'll go away as we refine. But we can see the you know, the yellow light that's actually coming through there. So these changes, you know, it really does make a difference on the internal scenes as well. Okay, so that's really, you know, what's going on with the image-based lighting. So those IBLs. So you know, if I change move to one of our move previews here, we go to mountain sunrise, you know, it's really, we've got that very different lighting feel. I can turn down the background brightness there if you want to see that through the window. So it's combining those two. So there's the sun coming directly through there. So it's combining those two things, and you know, you can really get the style that you want using all the different IBLs. So if there's any questions on IBLs, you know, happy to sort of answer those before we move into sort of IES. But yeah, you know, hopefully that's really sort of giving you an understanding of where and how you can use the image-based lighting. Okay, so I think there's a couple of questions, but people have said that they'd rather have an email response on that one. So you know, we'll carry on to IES. Okay, now as we mentioned before, IES files. The Illuminating Engineering Society, this was set up you know, a number of years ago, and basically it's so people know what they're getting, and you know, you can buy handbooks from them, but it's now become sort of recognized so that lighting manufacturers such as Philips, Sarconia, General Electric, a lot of the major bulb manufacturers, they can actually now distribute files to people so you know what you're going to be getting. Now, IES lights, as I said, the simple way to think of IES lights really is just a light bulb in a file format. Now, as you know, every light looks slightly different as you sort of you know, put in a different bulb, a downlighter or an uplighter, and these profiles can actually be contained inside an IES light.
just a quick make a point of this, Martin. Just about the IBLs and the IES lights. They're only pro features, so they'll be done. They're inside the pro, not available in the free version.
You know, there are IBLs in the free version, but there are only a limited number of them. Okay, so IES lights. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to open up a program here, and it's an IES viewer. And this is a free piece of software. And what this does is it basically takes the IES files and lets me know what they're going to look like. So I've downloaded some IES profiles here, and commercial and industrial fluorescent. These have come from a manufacturer. I believe these have come from Sarconia. And these are available to download free from the website. And using this viewer, which, as I said, is a free download, you can actually take a look at one of these IES lights, and this shows you sort of a rough outline of the profile. And if I render this, we can see what this IES light's going to look like. So this one's sort of quite a general spread, sort of fairly round looking light from the wall. And I can actually have a look at the distance, so seeing what it will look like further it is away from the wall or close to the wall. So using this tool, and if I choose one that's a different shape here and I render that, we can start to see that you know, we're getting a different spread. We can actually see the shape there that this is referencing in this image here. So we can see that shape. Now, what we can also do in here is we can spin this round, and that's actually looking so that this particular light doesn't look the same in all directions. So we're rotating that round there. Now, this IES viewer does contain a lot of other sort of information that, you know, more into the actual lighting profiles. You know, it tells sort of where it's come from, the particular style of lighting. So it does give a lot of information. And it is a very powerful free program. Okay, so let's have a look at IES lights inside of SketchUp. And so I'm just going to bring up a scene here. And this is a sort of simple looking scene. And I've just got these 4 lights, and I've already put an IES light onto of 3 of them there. And rendering that, these are just the default IES profiles that come with the with Shaderlight. So they just give out, it's a lot like a point light, it just gives out light in sort of general directions. And this is sort of looking at like a 100-watt light bulb. So the first thing I'm going to look at is placing an IES light. So on this last one, I'm just going to put an IES light in here. So using the Shaderlight light editor, I'm going to select the IES light, and IES light is like placing a spotlight. You need 1 click to position the light. The second click then controls the direction. So I'm just going to place the light on the end of that line that I've sketched there, and we can see that you know, with SketchUp snapping. So I prefer to draw a line in my component, and then I can snap my light to that line. There we go. So that's now pointing that light downwards from that wall light there. So we've got you know, my lights in there. So let's have a look as we go through here. If I select this first light, and this just in my light editor here, it then basically wants, you know, ask me my dimmer value. I can turn this light down. I can choose to have this light a little bit sort of less intensity if I want to. So I could change that to 50%. And in Shaderlight we can sort of start to see our first light there. It's being blown out by sort of the rest of the lights. But we can control that. And we can also control the colours as well. So if I did want that first light to be a different colour, you know, we can just set that up in our light profiles there. I'm just going to set Shaderlight tools on top. So we can just set that exactly as we want, and we can see this end light is being affected here. But if I wanted to change the IES profile to one that I'd downloaded from the website, like I said, from Lithonia or Sauconia, then I can just browse to a file here. And I'm just going to select some IES lights that I've downloaded. So, you know, we've got a light here. So I'm just going to choose this color blast light. And if I open that, we've got a light coming down here. And we can't quite see where that's going again. But let's change all of the lights. Let's have a look at all of the different lights. So if I just select a different light in here. So I'm just going to choose, this is a LR4, which I know this is a 4 LED light. So it's not a very bright light. So if I select that one, we've just got sort of smaller lights there. And, you know, I can just quickly choose sort of the last couple of lights so that we can really see sort of in our scene. And we can start to see that even though it's the same light, now in our scene we've got 4 very different lights. So if I sort of spin round as well, we can actually see how it casts light on the floor. So this particular one is quite a strong downlight, spotlight on the floor. This one is just lighting the wall, much softer light. Now this one is halogen light that would have one of the reflective sort of coatings inside. So that's why we're getting the banding in the lights. So you know, if we zoom into that one, we can actually see the banding that comes in the IES file. So this IES file, this is where ultimately all the information is contained. So although at the beginning, you know, we gave you that description of the IES file, really, like I said, the way to think about it is a virtual light bulb file. And the lighting in it is sort of very different. And, you know, that can all be set up. So, you know, there are those different options in there. Okay, so now if we just go back to our sort of PowerPoint here, and we'll just minimize Shaderlight there. So we can see in here, you know, we've got the same scene, and you know, this model that we received actually from Mike Tadros at Igloo Studios. You know, it's a really good model, and we set this up, and this is set up with an IBL outside, so we're getting that blue, that very natural light coming into the room, and this is what ultimately makes our scene. So bringing those lights into the room, you know, it gives it that natural light. Your eyes know what's right, so it's looking at those there.
And Martin, we just had a quick question. Would you be able to clarify the different settings between exterior night and interior night renderings, please?
Okay. Right. Well, really the major difference between an exterior render and an interior render is global illumination. This will mean the light will actually bounce around inside of the scene. So, you know, when you're putting lights inside a room, it will bounce off walls, whereas externally, that's not where it's coming from. But ultimately, lighting an external scene, you know, we've done a webinar on this in the past, and as I mentioned, well worth having a look on YouTube. Really, if you set a dark IBL, which can just be a dark JPEG, and then from this, it's lighting it very much the same, just using those different lights. So, you know, for a nighttime one here, we've just got these artificial lights, and the global illumination is then bouncing around the room. So, you know, really that's sort of where we're looking at on that one.
Have you got any hints and tips at all as to how to render a fluorescent tube?
Rendering a fluorescent tube, it's quite a different style. The way that I would recommend would actually be to use the self-illuminating materials in the Shaderlight material editor. You can set to self-illuminating materials, and depending on, that's if you can see the tube, or if the tube is behind a recess, then I would put an area light sort of along the length just underneath the tube. Then using the self-illuminating materials, you've got the effect of the light. And then using the area light, you've got sort of spread of the light and soft shadow. So that's a technique that I would use. And we have used in the past for tubular lights.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Okay, now we always mention this sort of with the webinars is the system requirements, and again, one of the questions that has come up through the webinar is sort of the what makes a difference, RAM or CPU to rendering. Now it's a tough question purely because they both vary on each other. Your scene in Shaderlight gets loaded into your RAM. So if you have a large amount of RAM, you can put a large scene into there. So and that's really then with a large processor you're going to get sort of that rendering. But with the minimum requirements, you can set to tile mode, and so you'll be running there, because then each of those tiles then gets loaded into the RAM. So you've got your options there.
Fantastic. That's brilliant, Martin. Okay, so that's great, and thank you all for attending. We've actually come towards the end of our webinar today. I hope you've all found it informative, and it's given you a chance to further hone your skills. Now, our next webinar will be a question and answer session with our tech guys, and this will give you a chance to ask any questions you might have, whether it be lighting or materials, anything at all, and you'll be receiving an email shortly with information about this. Alternatively, if you jump onto Facebook and like us on there, that will give you updates for events and just general info about what's going on with Shaderlight at the moment. Thanks again for your time, everybody, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.